Welcome everyone. Ramadan Mubarak. Peace and blessings upon all of us. It's my distinguished honor to be with you all tonight at an evening of holy month of Ramadan. Dear friends, coronavirus pandemic changed how Ramadan looks. And each change passed over. Each change Seder and elsewhere. And Ramadan too. But it will not change our faith in God. And this uncertain time will not change that Ramadan is a month of solidarity, charity, and spirituality. Throughout the holy month of Ramadan, most of the Bay Area's 250,000 almost Muslim fast between dawn and sunset, spend time in Quranic recitation, self-reflection, and prayer in an effort to become closer to God, and give thanks for our blessings, and pray in words and pray in actions for most vulnerables. Now, I would like to introduce and welcome to our respected faith and community leaders. So I have Rabbi Jacqueline MATES-MUCHIN, Senior Rabbi at Temple Sinai, Auckland. Welcome, Jackie. And Kaushik Roy, Executive Director at Shanti Project. Welcome, Kaushik. And MAHA ELGENAIDI, Executive Director at Islamic Networks Group. Welcome, MAHA. And Dr. Mary Wardell, Vice Provost and Chief Diversity Officer at University of San Francisco. Welcome, Mary. And Reverend Ronald KOBATA, Resident Minister at the Buddhist Church of San Francisco.
Thank you.
Welcome, Ron.
Sure.
And Michael PAPPAS are one of the favorite person in the city, Executive Director at the San Francisco Interfaith Council. Welcome, Michael. And my name is Fatih Atesh, your Muslim brother at Pacifica Institute. So dear friends, Pacifica Institute, founded in early 2000 in California, strives for social justice, interfaith cooperation, advocacy through positive change, relationship building, and partnership for the common good through a wide range of activities, inspired by the transnational social movement called Hizmet movement, service in Turkish. For almost 20 years, Pacifica Institute organized wonderful interfaith fast breaking dinners called iftar dinners in faith houses, community centers, and homes. We break a bread together. We break baklava together. Due to all this pandemic, the concern for public health prevents us from gathering in person this year. Yet, we believe importance of meaningful connection in other ways. And here we are, our first Bay Area Interfaith Ramadan virtual gathering and prayer for humanity. And this year, our prayers, of course, will include special emphasis on the healthcare workers, emergency workers, and other essential employees who are on the front lines of the fight to protect our community. I also want to pray and remember for people who lost their lives, and I pray for people who lost their loved ones. And Interfaith Council of the Contra Costa, we're gonna host the virtual Interfaith Vigil for people who lost their lives on Thursday. Now, I would like to move our first part of the event and ask the faith leaders to grant us. Rabbi Jackie.
Thank you, and thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of this blessed gathering. The prayer that I'm going to share is from Mishkan Tefillah, the Reform Prayer Book. Thus says God, this is what I desire, to unlock the fetters of wickedness and untie the cords of lawlessness, to let the oppressed go free, to break off every yoke. Share your bread with the hungry and take the wretched poor into your home. When you see the naked, give clothing, and do not ignore your kin. If you banish the yoke from your midst, the menacing hand, the evil speech, if you offer compassion to the hungry and satisfy the famished creature, then your light shall shine in darkness. O guardian of life, may we always merit your protection. Teach us to give thanks for what we have by sharing it with those who are in need. Keep our eyes open to the wonders of creation and alert to the care of the earth. May we never be lazy in the work of peace. May we honor those who have championed it before us. Grant our leaders wisdom and forbearance. May we be governed by justice and compassion. Help us all to appreciate one another and to respect the many ways that we may serve you. O God, may our homes be safe from affliction and strife, and our world be sound in body and spirit. Amen.
Thank you, Jackie. It's beautiful. I want to invite the Kaushik to grant us, please.
Thank you very much, Fatih. Thank you for having me with all of you. In Hinduism, there are 4 paths to God: the paths of knowledge, prayer, meditation, action, and devoted love. I'd like to share brief commentaries on 2 of those paths tonight: prayer and action. The first, on prayer, is from Mahatma Gandhi. The object of prayer is not to please God. God does not need humanity's prayers or praise, but to purify ourselves. The process of self-purification consists in a conscious realization of God's presence within us. There is no strength greater than that which such realization gives. The presence of God has to be felt in every walk of life. If you think that as soon as you leave the prayer ground, you can live and behave in any way you want, your prayers will be useless. Prayer ought to result in self-purification, and it ought to transmute our entire conduct. When someone thinks praying gives them license to do as they like during the rest of their days, they deceive themselves, they deceive others, for it is a travesty of the meaning of prayer. Prayer does for purification of mind what the bucket and the broom do for the cleaning of our physical surroundings. No matter whether the prayer is the Hindu prayer, the Muslim prayer, or the Parsi prayer, the function is essentially the same, namely purification of the heart. And on the path of selfless action, I want to share these words from the first Hindu monastic to come to America, Swami Vivekananda. In this world, always take the position of the giver. Give everything and look for no returns. Give love, give help, give service, give any little thing you can. For if you want to find God, doing good to others is the essence of all worship. Those who see God in the marginalized, in the weak, and in the sick really worship God. And if one sees God only in an image or a book, their worship is only preliminary. And a closing thought, especially given the state of our country right now, from the Bhagavad Gita: remember, the ignorant work for their own profit. The wise work for the welfare of those in need. Thank you.
It's beautiful, Kaushik. Thank you very much. So I want to invite Mary to grant us, please. Mary.
Yes, thank you so much, Fatih. In my faith tradition, during this time of COVID-19, one of the things that we're called to do is to pray for those that feel weary and those whose strength has been sapped. And so I'd like to offer this prayer written by Rebecca Barlow Jordan to help find comfort and hope during the time of COVID-19. Lord, I'm weary. My energy is sagging and my motivation is lagging, and I am so in need of you. I need your strength. I need your fresh touch. I need to get back on track again. Your word says, the joy of the Lord is my strength. If that's true, then I need your joy to replace all the bone-tired parts of my mind and my body and my soul. The pressures of life sometimes push me in a corner, rendering me helpless to move forward. 100 voices call my name and I feel paralyzed at times to answer, not knowing where to turn. Lord, help me not to quit, to keep running this race faithfully, and to find strength in that safe, secret place of yours under the shadow of the Almighty. I need your strength, oh God, to say no when I'm tempted to surrender to harmful things, or when selfishness clings to my clothes and won't let go. I need your strength, oh God, to say yes when cowardness and fear nudge at me to deny the convictions of my heart. I need your strength, oh God, to reach out in love to those both close to me and all around me and those that need me. When don't I need your strength? You are my rock, and I run to you today, believing that you will lift up my heavy arms, that you will fuel me for the task ahead that you've given me, and that your joy will completely consume the weakness of my life and make me strong again. I don't want to stay grounded, crippled by limitations and failed attempts. I'm tired of feebled efforts. Lord, I want to mount up on your wings like an eagle and just fly because I want to soar. So renew my strength today, Lord. Fill me with your power to overcome each obstacle that is put in my path. With my eyes on you, Lord, with you walking beside me, working through me, I can make it. We can make it. Thank you, God. Amen.
Thank you, Mary. It was beautiful. Mayor, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So we are continuing with the prayers from the faith leaders, Mayor. So I will continue with the Ronald KOBATA, resident minister at the Buddhist Church of San Francisco. Can you please grant us, Ron?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for inviting and bringing us together on this special occasion of coming together for a prayer for humanity. Our religious spiritual life should not take pride in mere philosophy or dogma alone. It should enliven a person's daily life and transform one's seemingly independent, isolated existence and make it one with the Buddha's great light and compassion, realizing the truth of our interdependency, thereby promoting peace, giving encouragement and comfort, living responsibly, to be able to give thanks for each day's blessings, saying the Nembutsu, taking refuge, realizing shelter in immeasurable light, wisdom, and boundless life compassion. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you.
Beautiful. Now I would like to offer the Muslim prayer. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم بسم الله الذي لا يضر مع اسمه شيء في الأرض ولا في السماء وهو السميع العليم. اللهم اهدنا فيمن هديت وعافنا فيمن عافيت وتولنا فيمن توليت وبارك لنا فيما أعطيت وقنا شر ما قضيت فإنك تقضي ولا يقضى عليك وإنه لا يذل من واليت ولا يعز من عاديت ولك الحمد على ما قضيت تباركت اللهم ربنا وتعاليت لا إله إلا الله الحليم الكريم سبحان الله رب العرش العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين. God is great. All praises and the thanks are due to God. Only one who is worthy of remembrance with morning and the evening prayers and glorification. Endless praise and gratitude to the Lord of the universes. We are hoping your forgiveness, O God, O our Lord, who meets all our needs, our Lord, who clears away all troubles, eliminate all the concerns that are likely to happen us, O most merciful of the merciful. O Allah, save us, protect us from all sorts of troubles, all kind of discomforts, illnesses, and evils, and viruses, especially from the corona outbreak that we are currently exposed to. O Allah, you are the one, the Shafi, you are the one healer. Heal us. All praises be to you, O Lord. Amen. All right. So I would like to move forward to our event. And did we lost the communication with the mayor? All right, let's move forward. And then Michael, I would like to continue with you. All this trouble time, all this uncertainty time, a very different time we are having it. Could you please talk about how the San Francisco Interfaith Council respond to this pandemic? How interfaith communities and collaborated in this certain timing? Okay, we're having. All right, Mayor, good to have you back.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm sorry I lost you for a minute. You know, technology is a lot more difficult to use nowadays.
Even we are in Silicon Valley, right? So
yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. It's so honored to have you. Michael, I will come back to you in a minute. So Mayor, it's very honored to have you. It's my sincere thanks on behalf of all Muslims who lives in the city of San Francisco and around the Bay Area. And thank you for accepting our invitations. And it's very honored to have you here.
Thank you, and good evening, everybody. I'm really grateful to be here, even though we may not be able to meet in person to celebrate Ramadan and iftar. Now more than ever, the principles of Ramadan, the faith, community, and service are important for us to rely on as we go through these very challenging times. Our faith-based institutions and religious leaders have been incredibly helpful in making San Francisco a global leader when it comes to responding to the coronavirus. Many of you have been working with our Emergency Operations Center to share information with your congregants about city programs and services to help those impacted. And thank you so much to Michael PAPPAS for his work in helping us, especially during Easter. And that made such a huge difference, even though we know that was so difficult for so many spiritual people to not be able to come together as a community. Your work in helping some of our most vulnerable residents, including seniors and people experiencing homelessness, is so vital in this response. And we need to look out for those who are less fortunate during this time, which our faith has taught us. And as you all know, in San Francisco, it's definitely continues to be a real challenge. The reality is that some communities are clearly being hit harder by the coronavirus than others, and we need to do everything we can to support them. And we know that so many of you are doing just that. We've been rapidly expanding our access to food security programs and adding new food bank locations at schools and in neighborhoods that traditionally may not get support. We've gotten a lot of volunteers and donations, but donations, of course, of food continue to be needed. We launched a volunteer match program where people can give back by delivering meals or helping people in self-isolation with essential tasks. I know I got a note from my neighborhood block captain, basically with their phone number and their email address, asking if I need someone to run errands or to go to the grocery store, or pharmacy, or just someone to talk to. They were there for me, which was really, really sweet. We are helping people remain housed by issuing a moratorium on evictions and those impacted by the coronavirus. We are helping those who are afraid of losing their jobs if they are sick or have to care for a loved one by providing additional hours of sick pay for workers in the private sector. This is what we're doing from the city side. We are advocating for more state and federal funding so we can get the resources that we need to help those on the front line, especially our essential workers who are putting their lives on the line every single day to care for people in our community. We're continuing our efforts to help get people off the streets by finding temporary housing solutions, but also continuing to push for permanent housing to get built. And today, we have close to 1,000 homeless people who are in shelters. We have announced the 120 RVs that we're providing to the Bayview Hunters Point community. And we also announced through our public health order that construction will resume, because you know that after this is over, we not only need the jobs now through construction, but we also need the jobs in the housing after those projects are completed. And so I'm really proud of the steps that the city are taking to enact these policies and really create these programs to support so many of the people in our city who are impacted by the coronavirus. But the reality is that we're going to see these impacts, as I'm sure you all know, for some time. They're going to be with us. And as a result of a need to not only take care of our public health, but to also address the challenges around the economy and our financial health in the city, which has a tremendous impact, as you know, on our mental health. We convened the Economic Recovery Task Force to begin looking at how our city will begin to recover. And I hope many of you will provide your feedback as part of these efforts, including ways in which you believe we can begin to open our doors to our congregations or to various industries that so many of the people that you serve count on. Our faith-based institutions are a critical part of our society, and we need to work together to support each other. So I really appreciate this opportunity, but I want to be clear that what gives me hope for this recovery is really the strength of our community. We saw that strength in the aftermath of the earthquakes that happened in San Francisco in 1906 and 1989. We saw it in the aftermath of what happened during the AIDS crisis, where even at that time, the federal government were not engaged in working with San Francisco, which was the hardest hit to the AIDS crisis. And we basically have persevered and became a stronger force in the medical world as a result. We see that strength every single day in your work as religious leaders on the front line to help people who are in need. It's that work that gives me hope. It gives me confidence that our city will come back stronger than ever, because San Francisco, we talk about being a resilient city, but we actually have historical examples of why we are such. I really, again, appreciate the opportunity. Ramadan is a celebration of many of those values. And as our community observes this important tradition, even though we may be apart, we are still able to come together to recognize those values and to celebrate and to hope for a better future. We're going to all be counting on our spirituality to get us there. And I just want to take this opportunity to really thank Michael Pappas and the San Francisco Interfaith Council, the Pacifica Institute, and all of the religious leaders and the members joining us today to celebrate Ramadan and iftar. It's really great to see you, even though it's on Zoom. It just feels good. And thank you all so much for your leadership and your work and everything you continue to do.
Mayor Breed, thank you very much. And I think you wonderfully framed that. And I appreciate your leadership. And I appreciate your team and first responders and working hard to make us safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I observe, and I mean, we observe the San Francisco City's successful response to pandemic. And so I know that, but could you please a little bit talk more, how did you collaborate with the religious and the community leaders for this successful response? I know that at this point, I would like to acknowledge San Francisco, all religious leaders, but especially for the Muslim leaders, such as Human Rights Commissioner Hala Hijazi, Imam Abdul Qadir Alamin, and Iftikhar High, and many others, to work with you and with your team to giving the lights to Muslim community to get informed and work with the authorities and keep safe the communities. Could you please talk about a little bit more? I mean, as always, I said to my people as well, I mean, we shouldn't say to our our elected officials, good luck. That's not the way, right? Yeah. And as a community leader and the faith leaders, we always say, what can we do for you to make it easier?
Well, I will tell you that from the very beginning, when we operated our emergency operations center at the Moscone Center, we incorporated an equity team into the work that we do, because we know San Francisco, when we talk about diversity, we're not just talking about, our race, we're talking about our religion, we're talking about the various languages that we speak. And it's important to make sure that the outreach it respects the community that we're working with. And so from the very beginning through Cheryl Davis, who is the director of the Human Rights Commission, where Hala Hijazi serves as the commissioner, part of our focus has been to reach out to congregations, because in the beginning, as you recall, we were asking you to do something that I don't think anyone in the religious community has been ever asked before, and that is to not hold service. And I know how hard that was. And so the outreach we had to do to talk to leaders in this community. And again, I go back to the Interfaith Council and how they helped us to bring people together to have the conversation, and how they were leaders in communicating the message and why it was important, was really what has been instrumental in helping San Francisco flatten the curve. Because there are other places where, in fact, there was a choir in Washington State, 45 people, they socially distanced themselves, they wore masks, they took precautions, they had choir rehearsal, 45 people were diagnosed with coronavirus and 2 people died. And so I think that we have not experienced that here because of the outreach and the work that you have all helped us to do with the religious community. And that was really critical early on. It was really, as this was an evolving situation, right? We know that the situation, there was a lot of uncertainty, a lot of misinformation. And what we tried to do is make sure that we were clear in our communication. And as soon as we got the facts, we were able to provide that information and to work with this community to do just that. I think that has been one of the most critical parts. And now the need to work with this community again, as our public health officials are looking at, okay, where do we go from here? We know this is going to be with us for some time. We know that people are going to want to get back to their lives, especially their spirituality. And so what are some things that we can do, some steps that we can take to allow people to have access to their religious institutions? And so we are open to working again with this community for you to provide the suggestions of what you think, the kinds of procedures or policies or what have you that you can put into place that would potentially would make it possible for some of the congregations or to open our religious institutions in some capacity. So those conversations have to start now so that when we finally move forward with the day that we could possibly open, what does that mean? So that when your congregates are walking in the door, what does that mean from day one to protect them, right? We're not suggesting that this is going to happen right away, but we need to start talking about it because we know people are going to want to get back to their churches and to their mosque and to other places of worship. And so we want to work with you on how we make sure we can do that safely for the people that you serve and you want to, of course, protect.
Thank you, Maya. Mabry, this is wonderful. So I would like to turn to, if you please stay with us a little bit more, and I will ask to Michael Pappas at the San Francisco Interfaith Council to echo what you just said in the city, have the religious leaders of the Interfaith Council work together to respond to this uncertain time. Michael?
He's on mute. Michael, you're on mute.
Okay.
All right.
I found my voice, Mayor. It's wonderful to see you. And Mayor, it's said that in times of crises, people define themselves. And you have defined yourself as a leader par excellence. I have not been so proud to be a San Franciscan in a very long time. Thank you for your early and decisive leadership. Tonight you're among friends, and we are so proud of you. And I just want to, I have a question for you as well, and that is, we're going to be a different city after this. We've learned a lot. We're going to be a changed people. What kind of San Francisco do you want to see coming out of this, and how can we help you realize that?
Well, first of all, we are going to be a different San Francisco from a physical standpoint, right? In terms of how we go about our day-to-day business will change, and how we interact with one another will change. But what I hope to see is what I've seen throughout the course of this shelter in place, the very best of people. Again, I got this note from a neighbor who I didn't know. I get notes on a regular basis from neighbors who are thanking me for my service. I hear about grocery bags showing up at senior homes and places where people can't necessarily get out. I see the goodness in people. And I also see everyone taking a minute to just reflect and get closer really to your spirituality. And I think that, you know, for me, I feel like, you know, of course, as someone who is a Christian, and my faith is important to me, you know, I think God is taking a moment to slow us down and to make us, you know, really value one another, value the earth. You see the air quality is better, and how this has impacted some things in a positive way, even though this is very challenging for us. But it does force us to take a moment to reflect on how we can be better people and more engaged spiritually, and also using that to continue to put out more positive energy and positive love and support in the air. So I want to see that continue. I think technology is somewhat, although it's great during this time, everything is fast, instantaneous information, and things are just moving. And it's important to take a moment to reflect and take a moment to have conversations with people, and just regular conversations, and not necessarily just text messaging and so on and so forth. So there's so many good things that I think, I've been calling people on the telephone a lot. So I think there's a lot of good that can come out of this. And I hope that many of those things that we implemented could actually implement it now, and things that people are doing for their neighbors. I hope those relationships continue. I think they'll make us stronger.
I think they will. And I just want to let you know, you have 800 communities of faith and religious institutions in San Francisco that want to partner with you.
Right.
And we're here to work together to make San Francisco a better place. Fatih asked me our small role in all of this, and to understand that, you have to understand why we were founded. And interestingly, the Interfaith Council was called into existence by city government during 30 years ago to help respond to the homeless crisis. And so we've rolled up our sleeves and we've worked in collaboration with the city on these things. And I think that's going to be very instructive to understand how we got involved in this crisis. And as you remember, I think it was the 25th of February. It was either the 25th or the 27th. I remember sitting at the Emergency Operations Center on Turk Street when the emergency was announced. I don't know if it was an official declaration. And at that point, the Department of Emergency Management activated the community branch, of which the San Francisco Interfaith Council is a stakeholder. And I've been in my position for 13 years, and I always wondered, not only were we founded because of the homeless crisis, but the year after the Loma Prieta earthquake. And I knew that we were going to be called upon in times of a crisis. And in my own head, it was an earthquake. And I said, how are we going to get information out? And we were told on that first day that our job was going to be to convey the official communications, the aggressive recommendations, the public orders, to help clarify them. And that's what we've been doing since day one, but we've been doing more. I think I am so proud of the faith leaders in this town who, going into Passover and Easter and in anticipation of Ramadan, had to pivot overnight and foster community in the midst of isolation and minister to some of the most vulnerable sectors in San Francisco. And my hat goes off to them, because our existence is only as good as the collection of the faith communities in San Francisco. We've also been working with your Human Services Agency, trying to identify religious facilities in the event that they're needed above and beyond what has been secure already, to thin the shelters and to help have a haven for the homeless. We've also been working with food runners and other groups to help get food, excess food, to the food insecure. And we're looking right now, Mayor, to work with some of your department heads to see how we can redeploy furloughed people to help staff where you need the staffing the most in the midst of this public health crisis. Those are some of the things we've been doing. You also have a spiritual element here. We're praying for people. I think, I've been coming to these dinners for years, and I think in some cases they've been a moment of pride for the Muslim community. For those of us who are not Muslim, it's an opportunity for us to interact with our Muslim brothers and sisters. But I have to tell you, this year, more than any year, the concept of fasting and prayer and alms has taken on a new meaning. We've been asked to fast from things that we never thought we'd have to fast from, and yet we appreciate them more now than ever. We've been asked, as you said, to stop for a moment and to pray and to give some contemplation to the fact that, you know, we're in the hands of our Creator, and our Creator will take care of us, and we have to take care of our creation. And in terms of alms, I've never seen a more generosity of spirit, both in reaching out to one another, but also people wanting to help. That is a form of almsgiving. And so Ramadan for me this year takes on a new and deep meaning. Our faith leaders are your ambassadors. Our faith leaders are going to have to help hold the hands of those who have lost jobs, those who have been traumatized by isolation, and welcome them back into community. We're here to do that, Madam Mayor. We're here to do that, Fatih. And I just give thanks for this evening. I give thanks for you, Madam Mayor, and for the community we have here tonight.
Mayor Breed, thank you very much. I appreciate in your very busy schedule, you spend the time with us. I think you, in your speech, you just described the Ramadan, spirit of Ramadan, slowing down, self-reflection, charity, and taking care of others. That's the spirit of Ramadan. Thank you, Mayor, to remind us. I appreciate as a Muslim to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you all. I appreciate it and appreciate everything you do. Thank you for your kind words, Michael. It means a lot. And we're going to have a lot more work to do. And I'm definitely going to be calling on you to help us out. And I know you are already rising to the occasion, but I also know that you will do a lot more to help serve our city. So thank you all so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Lon.
Good evening.
Good evening, madam. All right. Thank you, Michael. It was wonderful. And well, in this different time, actually, I feel, I mean, very different time, and I feel joy to see how people taking care of others, seeing the food rise, saving masks in the home, right? I mean, those wonderful things happening. But at the same time, we see the we observe that some hate and scapegoating increase, unfortunately, again. And I would like to ask to Rabbi Jackie and Reverend Ron about this. We noticed, I mean, we observed to xenophobic words and actions, unfortunate, against the Asian American community. We see the xenophobia and anti-Semitism and Islamophobia again, unfortunately. I would like to get your reflection, Rabbi Jackie.
Thank you, Fatih. You know, I think the most important thing at this point to do is to help to support all the victims and the targets of this hate and this violence. And I will say from my own community's experience, from the times that we are sometimes the target, to have other organizations and to have individuals reach out, whether it's by notes or by emails or by phone calls, just gives you that sense that you are not alone, that others stand with you, and that good people are there to help support and to get you through those difficult times. So as much as we can reach out to organizations or other institutions that represent the Asian American community, as well as individuals that we may know in our own lives, I think that that's the most important thing. There is another layer, though, and an important thing I think that we need to think about. In some ways, the the aggression and the acts of violence are the pieces that are the easiest to identify when we talk about prejudice or we talk about xenophobia. But there's the other layer too that's so important for all of us to think about, and that is our own biases and our own ways of thinking about our own divisions we put up between people and our own assumptions. And those are, I think, harder in a lot of ways to combat because we often don't know that they're there. But they carry seeds of some of these ideas that ultimately blossom into hatred and into violence in some places. A brief, just a small example of this. I have when all of this started, there was an acquaintance who came to me with concern and thought that I needed to be, as a Chinese American, that I needed to be particularly careful because I had a higher chance of contracting the disease because I'm of Chinese descent. And her sense of, it came out as concern, but her distance from me, that I would be somehow more closely connected to people who live in a country very far away that I've never been to. My family's been in this country for 3 generations, 4 generations now, and that she saw my connection closer to the people in China than to her. That it's just, and again, even though it comes out as concern, it's those pieces that just demonstrate the divide and the assumptions that people have in their minds. So it's important for us, I think, to reflect on ourselves as much as it is to point it out to other people, and to make sure that we speak up if we see something or that we hear a joke that's problematic. I want to actually just offer a practice that I think is rooted in the book of Genesis, in the first chapter of the book of Genesis, and thinking about the idea that we are all made in God's image. And the next time that we are with a group of people, whether it's virtually or in person, that we take a reflective minute to look at the faces of the people who are around us and to say to ourselves, as we look at each one carefully, made in the image of God. And we look at the next person, made in the image of God. Because if we can do that, then we remind ourselves immediately of the sacredness that we share, that it's based on that foundation of sacredness, of being made in the image of the divine, that then we build our understanding of who each of us is as individuals. And if we can do that, I think we can start to build that better connection, that deeper connection on the level of that sacredness and the fact that we are all made in God's image. So I hope that is something that's a practice for each of us that we may be able to help to combat for ourselves as well as for others. Some of these pieces that continue to plague our society and continue to create such difficult situations for various communities within our greater United States and the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. I think it was 4 years ago, I received a letter, and that letter offers the solidarity and brotherhood and sisterhood. And it really felt me I'm not alone, because in that time, there was a rhetoric, the Muslims should have a second ID or special ID, whatever, or Muslim ban they were talking about, and etc. But that letter really made me the different. I felt I belong to this community and this society. And that letter belonged to you and leadership from the Temple Sinai. And from that moment, it really started a wonderful relationship between Temple Sinai and Pacifica Institute. So,
and Pacifica Institute and you in particular, have reached out to us in every difficult moment, and also in the happy moments and the celebrations. And so that friendship and that connection is so important. Thank you, Fatih.
I'm grateful for your friendship, Jackie. So I would like to move forward to Reverend Ron to give his reflections about this rising the xenophobia. Reverend Ron.
Well, I just think in terms of the word itself. It says I'm muted.
You are okay, Ron.
Oh, okay. Okay. I thought maybe that was one of my members. So he doesn't say anything dumb. Well, anyway, I just appreciate the spirit of this gathering. And, xenophobia, the word itself is fear. So fear comes out of ignorance and alienation, isolation, because we're always fearful of the other. But this type of effort that you're bringing us together is, I see how we respond to that fear, that unfounded fear, or as you called it, scapegoating, always finding somebody else to blame for my own insecurity, my own fear. And that's what xenophobia is. It's basically the tribal mentality that separates, makes these, relative kind of arbitrary sometimes distinctions. But the spirit that we come together with is something universal. And that's what I see as our common soul. Even though Buddhism, we don't talk about soul so much, but soul for me is sharing, S-O-U-L, sharing one universal life.
Wow, wonderful.
And so we're all soul brothers and sisters. So thank you. Thank you, Fatih.
Appreciate it, Ron. So I would like to move forward to Sister Maha. Maha is running a wonderful organization. I admire always their programs and face-to-face education, which is very important, I believe, in my perspective, to overcome the stereotypes and bigotry face-to-face. If you know someone from other side, you probably get easier to overcome that stereotypes. So Sister Maha, could you please talk about a Muslim response to this uncertain timing in the light of Ramadan?
Sure. I think I'm unmuted. So thank you so much, Fatih. And it's always an honor to be part of any program that Pacifica does. We've been friends for a long time, and I'm just very glad to be part of this event and to be with everyone this evening. So in light of the fact that this is Ramadan and we're about, 20 minutes away from breaking our fast,
I look forward to it.
I wanted to begin by expressing my prayers for all Muslims to have a blessed and a peaceful Ramadan this year. May God accept our fast and may the blessings of the month bring all that we're praying for. Ameen. So the Muslim response to the corona pandemic in general should be one that is grounded in our tradition, specifically a tradition that addresses pandemics, which was in fact implemented throughout Muslim history from the Umayyads all the way up to the Ottomans and since. And that famous tradition relates that when the Prophet Muhammad's wife, Aisha, who by the way was one of the foremost scholars of Islam, asked the Prophet Muhammad about plagues, he said that they used to be viewed as a punishment from God. But after me, God made them a mercy and a blessing for the believers. And the same tradition also tells us that anyone residing in a land afflicted by plague who remains patient and hopes for reward from God, knowing that nothing will befall him except what God has decreed, will be given the reward of a martyr. And in another tradition, the Prophet also said that if you hear of a plague in a land, then do not go into it. If it happens in a land where you are, then do not go out of it. So the two conditions that are given is that people remain in the case of a plague, that people remain where they are and that they bear the situation with patience. And what I find amazing about this 1400-year-old tradition is that it exactly reflects the shelter-in-place policy of the CDC, the World Health Organization, and our state and cities throughout the country. The Prophet Muhammad also referred to tribulations such as plagues as a mercy to people of faith, because while they're very difficult periods of time, they also have the benefit of leading us to see things as they are, instead of the way we might falsely perceive them to be or want them to be. A good example of that is, and I think people, other people on the panel today basically said the same thing, is that realizing during this pandemic the absolute necessities in life and work. It wasn't distractions like sports, celebrity culture, or other similar things that we waste enormous amounts of time on. It basically came down to our health and healthcare, our food, and anyone handling food, our home life, and who we consider to be part of our family and network of friends, and all those services and service providers that are necessary for society to function, such as police and fire services, the people who collect trash, and so forth. And that should give us pause to consider whether we should ever return to those distractions again. I hope not. For me, I hope not. And as also was pointed out, for the first time in many decades, the earth has been given a chance to rest, to recover, and to heal from the many pollutants and carbon emissions at a time when climate change is threatening our very existence on earth. I'm amazed, for example, that I can now hear and have been made aware of the number of birds around my home throughout the day. Maybe they were always there and I never heard them, I never noticed them, but now I do. And it's just been a marvel of experience. Crises such as pandemics also provide a renewed opportunity to reflect and reset our priorities, as the mayor also said, to consider where we are in our lives, and perhaps to do things differently. Tribulation for believers is also an opportunity to renew our faith, to increase and deepen our devotion and worship, and even to repent to God if that is what is needed. And for people who have religion but no faith, perhaps this is your time to turn back to God, who will show you a completely new and a better reality if you seek it. And if this crisis inspires us to do any of those things, we will all come out of this as better human beings. Now, Ramadan for Muslims squarely aligns with this period of time in a few ways. For those who do not know what Ramadan is, I'm assuming that there are non-Muslims watching as well. Its purpose is to commemorate the revelation of the Quran, and it's a period of fasting from food and water between dawn and sunset every day for 30 days to build willpower. The fasting from food and water is easy. And I know some people can't fathom that possibility, but as someone who really enjoys food, which I associate with socializing, I'm here to tell you that it becomes really easy after a few days. What is difficult is what we're also fasting from, which is any action or behavior that is inconsistent with our prophetic teachings of having virtuous character, being truthful, being upright and courageous, having goodwill towards everyone, being a good neighbor, being charitable, not speaking ill of other people, not backbiting, avoiding any arguing or fighting, and just trying to improve one's character overall. And that's not an easy thing to do, especially for 30 days. But it's something that we can all benefit from. So all of these things that I mentioned earlier that are opportunities for us while sheltering in place during a pandemic are actually things that all Muslims should be doing now during the month of Ramadan, which is a period of spiritual rejuvenation and refinement in character. And if Muslims feel lonely practicing Ramadan when our mosques are closed and we're not able to be with friends and family in person, Muslims can take comfort in the fact that the entire nation and world is also forced to slow down, reflect, and reset. And that is exactly what Ramadan is about, and what has been pointed out by you, Fatih, and Michael, and the mayor. So thank you.
Thank you, Sister Maha. It was beautiful. It's as you said that, I mean, after first couple days, we got used to about the food and things. Maybe not for the coffee and tea. I'm still struggling about that, but still okay. Well, thank you. So we almost time, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so it's I would like to move forward to dear sister Mary and the brother Kaushik. And so I would like to get your reflection about this uncertain timing. And I know that Mary, you are in the campus and you are with the young generation. And so how do you, what's your reflections in this uncertain timing, Mary?
Well, you know what, young people that are experiencing this, and you know, I have spent my career, my life working with college-age students, and many times college-age students, we think of traditional students, but many of them have returned to and continue their education. And so many of our students are in the 30, 40, and 50-year-old range. But particularly for a traditional student, they have only grown up during a time when all the technologies that we're all learning to use right now has been a part of who they are. And so this particular COVID-19 situation, as we have moved to remote learning, and we're having all of our classrooms, and I'm teaching as well, all of our classrooms are online, you can see a weariness in young people where they love technology, and they're at a point right now they actually do not want to have anything to do with technology, which is the complete opposite of individuals who in many ways have come into the world that only know the world through the sense of all the ways in which we engage in technology. And so that alone has not only disrupted, been a disruption for them, but for those, even the privilege of having technology has been I think the ground underneath them has shifted. And so I had a young woman that stayed on, I do a talk every Friday that I did once we saw the impacts of this situation, and I call it discerning diversity. So we're just talking about what are the equity and inclusion issues. Let's discern, perhaps what is it that God is teaching us? What is it that we should be paying attention to around these issues? And there's one young lady a young woman that stayed on the call. And so it was faculty, staff, and students. And we got to the hour had finished. And then I stayed over for another, I said, I'll stay on the call for whoever wants to stay. And anyways, one young woman stayed. She says, Dr. Wardell, I'm graduating in May. And I cannot tell you how frightened I am about what comes next in the world. She says, I'm at shelter at home. She's in Southern California. She's there trying to both support her family, being a first generation college graduate. So she's carrying all the hopes and the dreams that the family has invested in her. And at the same time, this uncertainty has come and it has sprouted up in her young life. And the only thing that I can tell her is that, that there is a wisdom that is in your DNA that perhaps at 24, you have not yet recognized it. But I want you to know that it was passed down from your ancestors. It is in who you are. And this particular time is an invitation for you in your early 20s, as it is for me in the state that I am at in regard to my age, and all of us to be thinking about what are we being asked to do right now? And I said, it might be one of the most powerful times to be entering your professional career compared to the many of us that came out of school in the 80s and 90s, and we were kind of on a wheel, we were just doing what the world told us to do. And to have that powerful pause, I said, you are actually entering during a time where you can actually say, God, what is it that you want me to do with my life? What do you want me to do with this degree? What am I being called to do? And so, I think that's one of the things, the great opportunities that's coming out of this uncertainty, particularly for students that are in college right now. And also, we got to keep our finger on the pulse. And I'll say this lastly, with the mayor, Breed, referred to this, all of the inequities in society have been magnified. So this whole remote learning thing, if you're in college, you probably are more privileged to be able to, have access to it one way or the other, even though college students are having issues. Children in K-12, there's actually the absenteeism rate for children that are not logging in for their regularly scheduled remote learning is significant depending on the actual zip code that child is in. And so, there is so much more that educators as myself, we know that our work is not going to be done. Even as we move through this COVID-19, we were going to be dealing with this, I think, not only for months later, we're going to be dealing years later, not only the economic recovery work that Michael and others are doing, but there's going to be an educational recovery, for the loss of learning and the compounding impacts of the loss of learning. So those are the things that's on my mind and on my heart right now. But thank you so much for asking, Fatih.
course. Thank you, Mary. Is always to have all these Jesuit schools around the world, right? Around the world, and I think you might heard that the Pacifica Institute is aligned with the Hizmet movement, which has dedicated to education as well for young generations, because we believe the importance of education and interfaith dialogue and the charity. So thank you, Mary.
Absolutely.
Kaushik, you are running a wonderful organization for most of the vulnerable communities. Could you please tell us your reflections? How can we a source of hope, Kaushik?
Of course. Thank you, Fatih. I think all faith traditions, when we look at this idea of how do we achieve some sort of inner peace or happiness or satisfaction, and actually beyond faith, I think positive psychologists and psychologists who study human nature and happiness in general all point to this idea of transcending something beyond our individual selves, to become a part of something that is greater than just ourselves. And I think, first of all, San Francisco is a leader in that. We are certainly living up to our namesake as the city of St. Francis in that regard. The mayor mentioned in her remarks, one of the things the city was doing is creating a volunteer program to facilitate some of this ability for folks to go beyond themselves right now. As you mentioned, Fatih, I have the honor of running an organization here called Shanti Project, which is one of the city's pioneering nonprofits in building human connections to reduce isolation, increase quality of life and health. And so the city asked us, right when the mayor first started the shelter in place, to create this emergency volunteer program, to have a core of volunteers essentially that would be on call and be able to help those folks who most likely were already homebound before COVID-19 and certainly are strongly advised to stay home and would run out of food or other essentials or need other help with tasks. And the reason what I want to share as far as a reflection goes is it has been a wonderful reminder for me, especially given all the reasons we have, understandably, to be jaded about what's happened in our country and world over the last several years, to be reminded of how much people really want to do good and to try to do something for others. In just a matter of a few weeks, this program we created with the city, the COVID-19 Emergency Response Volunteer Program, we've received over 600, probably closer to 700 inquiries, 400 people have submitted applications, and the things they say are just, there's wonderful insights into the basic goodness we have. Just this evening, we were trying to find someone to help out a family, a quarantined family who didn't have food. And we reached out to a volunteer who we call on a lot. And he said, I'm really sorry, I can't help tonight. But the reason he can't help is because he's making hand sanitizers for people in prison, which I just thought was so perfect that he couldn't help us out with this because he was doing that for some of the most marginalized, of course, in our community. Yesterday, there was actually an NPR story on what Shanti was doing. And I got this email from a woman in Virginia who just said, I heard this radio piece, so I had to go and see what you were doing. I can't walk dogs or deliver groceries, but I'd love to do something. So if you have any opportunities to provide support over the phone, will you please let me know? And I'm certainly not one to say that, that there are silver linings to really horrible things that happen to us. I do believe that diminishes the pain from those who are most impacted. But I will say, it's for our own benefit to remind ourselves that this inherent goodness is in so many of us, and in such difficult times, it abounds in a city like San Francisco. And so I know a lot of our faith leaders have encouraged their congregations to try to help in any way possible. A lot of nonprofits, certainly Shanti is just one of many nonprofits who are rallying volunteers to help out in so many ways. But truly, I think the one opportunity we have to have a little bit of solace in such difficult times is to make sure that we are transcending just our individual selves in some way of supporting others or volunteering. So thank you.
Kaushik, thank you very much. Shanti Project is wonderful organization. You are a good friend of mine and the colleague and the brother. Wonderful. I think that it really, what you just said, it reminds me to our beloved teacher Fethullah Gulen is talking about a bird with two wings, and the sincerity and words in one wing but the actions and doing something actually is another wing. So that is, we are able to go far away with this good intention, prayers in words and prayers in action. I appreciate for all of you to joining us. It's almost time. So we have Imam Yilmaz Bashak at Correctional Institutions Chaplaincy Ministry of Santa Clara County, good friend of mine. Welcome, Imam. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace be with you all.
So Imam Yilmaz Bashak is a Muslim chaplain in Santa Clara County system. So wonderful colleague of me. So he's gonna offer call to prayer and blessings for the food. If this is the time, Imam.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر، الله أكبر، لا إله إلا الله. آمين. اللهم رب هذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آت سيدنا محمدا الوسيلة والفضيلة والدرجة الرفيعة العالية وابعثه مقاما محمودا الذي وعدته إنك لا تخلف الميعاد. اللهم لك صمنا وبك آمنا وعليك توكلنا وعلى رزقك أفطرنا فتقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم. In the name of Allah, we fasted, and with the food you give us, we break the fast and obligation we fulfilled, and you hear our prayers and know our actions and thoughts. He who is great in forgiving, forgive us. O Allah, accept our prayers. You are the all-hearing and all-knowing. Please remove all the sickness and weakness from us. Please grant us and our families health, knowledge, peace, and prosperity. O Allah, please guide us and protect us and our families from all calamities. O Allah, please take care of us with love and mercy. Protect us and hear our sincere prayers to you and guide us out all hardship. Ameen. Ramadan Mubarak.
Ramadan Mubarak, Imam Yilmaz. Thank you for this beautiful azan. And thank you for the blessings for the food. So it's time for ourselves is the break the fast. And it's always great to honor to have you all. Michael, Ron, Jackie, Kaushik, Mary, and Maha.
Thank you, Fatah.
Thank you very much. And Ramadan Mubarak and good evening, everyone. Hope to see you soon.
Thank you.
Inshallah.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.